What's up guys, it's Joe from Black Dan Barbell, and today I'm going to get straight into it and talk about, knee pain or patellar tendonitis and how to overcome it, because it's not well understood for people who've never experienced it before. As far as you know, you just get knee pain when you squat heavy, and it progressively got worse and worse and worse to the point where you couldn't even squat, to half depth, and then now the leg press hurts, everything on your leg days are hurting. And in the example that I'm bringing you today, one of my lifters, Jaden, it's kind of carried over into his work life as well. He's a 125 kilo guy. He walks around for 7-8 hours a day as part of his job, and his knees are starting to get sore outside of that. Bit more of an extreme case, but I've had 3 examples or experiences with patellar tendonitis myself during my comp prep this year leading into GPC States, which by the way, deadlifted 300 kilos, humble brag. My first 300 kilos, just saying. Where was I? Oh yes, so I had it myself leading into this prep. So these exercises that I'm going to show you, I used on myself to keep my knee pain at bay, and then eventually it just, miraculously one day was like, oh fuck, I'm now squatting with no knee pain, but I continue to do them all the way through my prep to make sure it stayed away. Another example that I've had with patellar tendonitis was one of my lifters, AJ. He's been strength training with me for a long time, about 5 years now, never experienced knee pain until we started adding in HIIT training and plyometric training. So, that impact of, he was fine lifting heavy weights, his tendons have become used to that, but then he started to bring some impact training, and it caused a bit too much stress on his tendons. So this exact same process I used on him, miraculously now does both, and has been doing both for the past 6 months with no knee pain. And obviously my most recent case with a lifter is Jaden. He's just what you might want to know about Jaden, where he's a bit of an extreme case, is the guy dislocated both of his knees when he was skiing or snowboarding in New Zealand years and years ago. So you could, his tendons and knees are already, they're not 100%. He squats 255 kilos, but it was only after a 200 kilo squat that it started, he felt the pain, and it's progressively got worse and worse and worse. And now this video is basically for him, showing him exactly how to overcome it. So the first thing I want you guys to understand is you need to know what patellar tendonitis is, because it's not something that you should be super fucking worried about, although the knees are a funny area, people get super worried about them. It's inflammation basically caused by exceeding the load capacity around the tendon and knee itself. Over time, the tendons adapt to a certain stress. Think about AJ, for example, his tendons adapted to the stress of weightlifting and getting stronger. He then started adding some impact exercises in there. That's when he started to exceed it. So other reasons why this might be happening for you guys as well is poor movement patterns, like your squat pattern or lower body movement patterns might be shit. Too much consistent overload with poor form, adding in new exercises again plyometrics, and injuries, past injuries that you haven't gotten on top of and overcome, creeping back in later on. So the next question, and I want to confirm this with you, is where you feel the pain. If you're getting pain just below the kneecap, on the outer side as well of the knee joint, towards that tibialis anterior, if you put your finger at the bottom of your knee where that pointy bone is, and you come just right and you can feel a little bit of a fleshy part, that also gets sore. That's kind of that area where this patellar tendonitis is. You can also, it can radiate up into the middle of the knee joint, but that is only just a referral of that. And it can cause pain and tenderness around that area, even to touch it at times. The pain comes from when you start to add load, right? You're walking around, along the beach, whatever you're doing, and your knees are fine. You then get 60 kilos on your back and you can squat about halfway down. You're like, fuck, my knees are now starting to get sore after 5 reps. That's where you will start to feel the pain, right? The first question that I got about this was, should I stop training to fix the pain? I can put a big fucking no across this screen, because that is a dumb idea, and here's why. while the pain, like let's say you go sit on the couch for 2 weeks, right? While the pain will reduce and you'll think that it goes away, that is not gonna fix the issue, because as soon as you add load back into the mix, you go back to the gym, you start trying to squat again, after 5 reps, 60 kilos, maybe even before, your knees are gonna start hurting again. You're gonna get pissed off and confused, right? And you're not that smart to begin with. Well, these lot aren't anyway, I'm just kidding. So there's a couple of things that you need to do. And the first thing is modifying your training for the short term, but making sure these exercises are kept inside of your program even after you feel like that knee pain or knee discomfort, tenderness has gone, right? So just be aware of that. Don't just, the dickheads of the fitness industry and people who just train past it, is they'll use these exercises, the pain will go away, they'll start to lift heavy again, like start to put the weight back up, and then the knee pain will come back and they'll come back like, Jack, it fucking didn't work after a while, it only worked for a certain amount of time. It's like, yeah, I know, knobhead. As you start to bring the weight back up, you need to keep these exercises in to keep the tendons healthy, you know what I mean? So just make sure you keep them in even after the pain goes away, at least like 10 weeks later, and if it does come back, add them back in immediately. It might be the case, if it gets to an extreme, you'll need to go see a specialist about it and get some scans done. But for the 3 cases I've had here, and most likely you can overcome it with these exercises here. So when you're doing this, I want to make it very, very clear. Not everything's going to be pain-free. You might feel some tenderness in and around the area, but I don't want it exceeding any more than like a 3 out of 10 for you. Chances are as soon as you start to weight train, you get like a 7 or 8 out of pain. I don't want you anywhere near that. So stay away from those exercises that cause that, and stay away from the weights that cause that. But the things that I'm about to give you, there will be some short-term like tenderness around the area, and it will progressively get better. As long as like each session, each week, it keeps getting better and better and better, and you're able to progress and progressively overload, you're on the right track. You then just have to implement patience and consistency. So the big thing that you need to do with patellar tendonitis is focus on isometrically loading that area before you start your weight training session, right? So the first couple of exercises that I give to myself and all my lifters, there's 3 of them. I'm going to start with the Spanish squat. So as you can see, pulling up the video about now, I've got a nice thick band, about 3 to 4 inch band. I'm wrapping it around just below my knee joints. If you've got hairy legs, this is gonna fucking suck like me. And what I'm doing is I'm walking back just enough to feel the band grab, like tension through the band. Now as I perform this exercise, as you can see, it's not a hinging movement. I'm not hinging my hips to like super far back. I'm just squatting straight down, allowing the band to pull on my knees, but I'm isometrically loading my quads. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna sit there for 15 seconds, really keeping the stress and the weight, the contraction inside of the quad, making sure that your knees are tracking over your midfoot, or in line with your midfoot, should I say. And you're gonna do about 4 sets of 15 seconds on those, right? And you can just, perform the 15 seconds, stand back up for 10 seconds, straight back in, perform that 4 times. That's the first exercise. As you can see there, we're isometrically loading the quad, isometrically loading the tendon as well, not putting too much stress through it, but we're just warming up that area, right? We're adding enough stress to it to where we can start to heal and regenerate that area. The next one is, there is a name for this exercise. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but it's like a single leg with a band. So the concept's the same. You're gonna just put one leg through this time, put the band around the back of your knee, come back until you feel a stretch in the band, and then enough so that it pulls your knee forward. And then your job is to contract the quad and then straighten the knee. Don't want to hyperextend it or overextend it. You just want to straighten the knee out. Again, isometrically contracting the quad, holding it there for about 5 seconds, relaxing it off, and repeating for like 5 to 10 reps. I will normally do 2 sets of 10 on this, so I advise you to do the same. Very, very simple exercise. Just make sure you're not overextending or hyperextending the knee joint. You just want enough to where you can really feel the quad contracting, getting a lot of blood into the quad, and even like feeling, tightness isn't the right word, but I suppose like, that contracting in and around the knee as well, as long as it's not hurting. So that's the second exercise. That'll be about 2 sets of 10 reps. That'll do you just fine. The third exercise is where we start to get into a little bit of like the weight loaded or the loaded exercises with a single leg extension. Big focus on here is we're not isometrically contracting it like the other two. We're going to be adding like a tempo into this. So you're going to contract the quad, lift the leg up to where the knee's completely straight, again not overextending it, and then on the way down you want to add like a tempo of 3 seconds. So we're eccentrically loading that area now, really focusing on keeping the contraction in the quad. You might even feel it around that area, but it won't be hurting. You'll just feel it working. The tendon's going to be actively working inside of this movement, making sure that you're squeezing the quad nice and controlled up. I even like to have a pause at the top and then lowering down for about 3 seconds. 2 sets of 10 on this exercise will do you just fine as well. Very, very simple exercises here. And again, this is just part of your warm-up. You can add it into all the other exercises that you do, but for your knees and quads, specifically the Spanish squat, the single leg with a band and single leg extension, that'll do you great for your warm-ups, and it'll get that area nice and warm, blood running through it. The tendon has been taken through a good range, both isometrically with your body weight, as well as we're now coming over to a little bit more of the loaded exercises. So when you're inside of your training, right, again, the big focus is to be eccentrically loading the quad and the tendons using lighter load. So what has worked for us in the past? Tempo squats. You know, we continue to squat through this. We just had to reduce the weight. Again, that's going to be down to who you are as an individual, and you know, your pain tolerance, and you know how far gone this is, and how much load you can put through the knee. But hey, if it's 40 kilos, it's 40 kilos. If it's 100 kilos, it's 100 kilos. But adding in some tempo squats, like 3 seconds down, 1 second pause, and then 2 seconds up. You know, 5 sets of 6 will do you good. You still want to keep the volume in there, especially if you're going lighter. But you want to be making sure that you are focusing on eccentrically loading the quad and the tendon, and then not rushing too much. So tempo squats, great exercise. You can do that high bar, low bar, front squat, safety bar, whatever you like. The next one is like leg press, eccentrically loading the leg press. Make sure you're not locking out your knee to the top. You're keeping the tension in and around that quad and that tendon. So same thing, like 2 to 3 seconds down, and then pushing up on in the concentric for 2 seconds. I think we were doing 4 sets of 10 to 15 on these, keeping the volume quite high inside of this. Bulgarian split squats. Personally, I'd like to go pretty heavy with my Bulgarian split squats. This is what again has worked for us. So when I say heavy, again, it is relative to the individual, but I will find quite a heavy weight. And we're really focusing on the eccentrically loading here. So like 3 to 4 seconds down, and then just a controlled push on the way up. If you want to add it in a little bit of spice into this, I did this myself, is I would load up a weight that I could maybe get 6 reps out, and then I would control it all the way down, and then I would let the dumbbells go at the bottom and then stand straight back up. And I would just do a couple of singles at that. It was just something different. It felt really good on my quads and my knee joint, and I would just do like 5 sets of 1 on those. If not, if you're just going to go for a heavy weight that you can do for like 10 to 15, then again, 3 seconds down, controlled push back up for 10 to 15 reps on the Bulgarian split squats. That's also worked perfectly. I had that for myself. AJ had that. Jaden's now implementing that inside of his training. And we're all walking away after these exercises and these training sessions going, do you know what? I actually feel good. Like I'm not in anywhere near as much pain, and I was still able to get my leg training session in. And then just 2 other exercises. Hack squats, another great one that we've used, and obviously leg extensions. Like we've done the single leg at the start. I'm a big fan of still putting them in there, just making sure you're not hyperextending at the knee, and you are controlling on the way up. And then again, it's you're getting a common theme here, like 3 seconds down, making sure that you're not relaxing at the bottom at all, keeping the contraction inside of the quad. So everything is done with like a 2 to 3 contraction. Picking the right exercises that work for you. I advise you to try them all, maybe just in the same session. So like I've just got written here, leg extensions, tempo squats, eccentric leg press, Bulgarian split squats, hack squats. That could be your training session. right? And you just pick, you know, reps of like 10 to 15 for everything but the squats. The squats you can do for like 5 sets of 6, and you know, see what exercises work best for you. But as I said before, this process does take a little bit of time. It's not always going to be pain-free, but if you are waking up the next morning without any pain and you can move around freely, or very, very minor tenderness around the area, it's better than it was the week before, you're on the right track. Now, I need to stress this. Once you do or have, or you are able to start putting more and more weight on the bar, you're starting to get back into your regular training, keep the fucking warm-up drills in there, and even on your accessory exercises like the leg press, etc. Make sure you just like eccentrically loading still, just for the maybe even 10 weeks afterwards you start getting back into increasing those heavy weights. The last thing you want to do is start to, you know, you go 2 steps forward, 2 steps back because you were a dickhead and took the fucking exercises out. So that is what I have done with my lifters to overcome patellar tendonitis. Again, it's a strike rate of like 3 out of 3 people right now. We're doing very, very well with it. If you have any questions, you can hit me up on any of my socials, Black Dan Barbell on Facebook and Instagram. Subscribe to the channel, like the video please, and I will see you next Friday. I believe next week I'm talking about helping people get shredded, or why you're not getting shredded or losing fat. But I'll speak to you next Friday.